Hi, welcome. On this next couple of videos, I'm going to be responding by way of some comments left on my one of my videos, recent videos, by way of the journey from being a balanced dog trainer to a interaction-based approach. And again, this comes from the husband and wife team trainers, K9Staya. Again, I've done some couple response breakdown videos of their approach, which is amazing. Okay, amazing in the fact of being able to see other trainers apply the concepts and again, you'll see them with dogs, okay, interacting with dogs, as they go through, and show the method. And again, so again, I know there's individuals out there who claim they don't get it, okay, who, will go on about not, word salad, and they use all sorts of words. Well, here's an example, okay, here's a example of a couple trainers who are doing it, okay, showing it, doing it. So again, for those out there who want to go on about not understanding, well, here it is. And so again, I'll talk through some of this because again, the issue here isn't about the understanding part. The issue is about the trade-off part. And again, I talk about this because, when I talk about, what defines a process, okay, when I talk about, this very popular idea of what how trainers are jumping into a relationship problem, how they're engaging, okay, a relationship problem, within the framework of, response. And what their focus is on, understand that it's a completely different approach, okay? It's a completely different path. You have to be dialed in differently, okay, beyond appearances. And so understand that, the issue is really not so much about this whole thing about not understanding. It's the issue about, these already established trainers and the trade-off. In fact, interesting. Okay, again, you go and I encourage you to go read the comments from K9Staya. He talks about all that. He talks about, even how difficult it was, making the trade-off part of it, understanding what you're coming up against, okay, in terms of the already established, sold out, turned over dog training community. Okay, understand that. Also, understand all these comments coming in, and I'm going to go through a couple more of these from these trainers. These are trainers who already sold out. Okay, you have to understand something here. So, when I'm removing again, the one of the complaints I responded to that about removing comments and banning some of these trainers and their followers. This is not the general public, okay, that I'm removing comments from. These are trainers who are coming in with ulterior motives, okay? They're not coming in with an open mind, okay, to actually put the information to the test. In fact, the whole recent thing here, and again, encourage you to go watch all the videos of the whole Kevin Murdoch situation. And this went on for months and months and months. And even the point of where that whole, how everything all fell apart at a certain point where things really went off the rails in that situation was at the point of, where those core ingredients are reconciled. Okay, the whole thing about the leash, right? Just go and look at that, ask yourself some questions like, where did that all really come off the rails? What came off that rails of that objection point? But it's the same objection point when you see Murdoch and these other trainers that get, start using inflammatory language and the cheap shots and the personal attacks. Well, that's where it's all coming from. But it goes right into these situations I profile right back to the, you look at say, the Jeff Gelman bonker situation where all these trainers, not just force free trainers, but balanced all trainers, they piled onto that situation through all that confusion, right? The dog giving a startled response. Well, that goes into what I'm saying. Okay. I mean, this is where the rubber meets the road. There's that point of contention, but that's the important part. Okay. When I talk about, the role of not just the dog owner, but influence and control, how they're reconciled in a very specific way to a process. And then this gets into this whole thing about the reactions, the responses of dogs, reactions to that, being able to reconcile the response or reactions of dogs to the relationship. Well, that's absent. Okay, understand that these trainers can't move beyond that. They can't reconcile that because they're not dialed in that way. And so when you look at the dogs that they have personally, I get into all this, say with Gray Goose, that whole situation. Well, same thing. Left with a, you get a reactive dog in your hands that you can't, the trainer can't work through. But what do these trainers do? They're trying, and this is gets into this whole thing, this issue of what they're doing, being very dishonest, is they're trying to portray themselves at a certain level that, but they can't work through stuff because the process that they're aligned with is not reconciled that way. Okay, it does not reconcile the core ingredients. So they're either stalled out or they're in a bind. Okay, basically, and this is where all the nasty. Understand this. So if you really piece this together, you'll see how this all plays out. But the point of of him putting himself in a position again, when I go back to that, you go watch the video of Grey Goose locking up, and I line it all up, put himself in that position of what I call the test, because it is, exposes it. Okay, there it is. Okay, and then from that you just link it all together. Okay, then suddenly, right, suddenly admitting that get all these problems with Grey Goose, which were there all the whole time. The clues are all there, right? But see, that's the thing. And so understand that then moving beyond that to say he's just another person in this whole line of individuals that are doing the same thing. It's the same playbook. Okay, understand these trainers because they're all, if the core ingredients aren't reconciled, then you're going to get that issue going on. You're going to have those problems. It all comes down to that. So, but moving on, right? Because here's the thing: is like, my focus is on focusing in on individuals that are on the right journey, right? So, it's not about me hovering on certain people, but that whole situation is a great illustration, okay? Because you can line it up with any other situation, apply the test. But understand again this whole thing about, so when I talk about K9Staya, yeah, it's great because you're seeing again the whole objection point, the whole excuses these trainers use. Well, here you have trainers that are doing it. I'm going to do a couple more videos on their method because it's amazing. Seeing trainers out there that, because the same opportunity exists for everybody. Understand this isn't, you can line up, you can put everything I say to the test. And so when I said before, why was it that, individuals such as I said about Murdoch, months and months and months went by, and I said the same thing about put it to the test. Never did until, right, at the end. And then there you go. No excuses. I mean, understand and this is the great thing. It's not about whether you like me or not, about personality. It's about here's the test. You can apply it. It removes all that from it, all the background noise from it, and you can apply it, which is the way it should be. Okay. It's like you don't have to, I mean, it should be about information. And see, that's the thing I talk about. These trainers, that's why do you think they get so nasty and they want to get personal? They want to engage that way because they can't respond to the information. That's it. So you got to try to attack the person, but then look at the state of the dog training world. Okay, understand this level of dishonesty, right? These like Murdoch, I mentioned his name a couple times in this, but saying I don't want to talk about the controversies. Well, why don't you want to talk about them? Well, because it's the same thing. Because you have to go there. You already made the choice to move forward with this, flawed ideology. So of course you're not going to go there because you don't want to go there. Okay, the same holds true for any other trainer out there because that's not what it's about. Okay, it's not about the truth that way. They go on about truth, but it's not about truth that way. So, but here, see, and this is the thing. That's why again I end up banning and removing all these people because then it's like, okay, there's nothing further that they can add to anything. Because the information I put out, I understand the response from the dog training community. Okay, I understand that when I ban all these people, this is the established dog training community. They've already sold out. They already made their choice. They can they can reverse it, right, and come out of it and shake loose from it, like K9Staya um, did. And but a lot of them they don't want to. Okay, it's not about that. Um, but there's also a level of integrity and honesty that has to go along with that. Okay. When you shake loose out of that, it's like, because understand this is the thing about, so you have to start somewhere, right? So you might, you're starting within the parameters of learning. You start, you advance to into, say, as a balanced dog trainer. But there's a moment where you should be saying there's something wrong here. Okay, there's things aren't lining up. Okay, the blame shifting, right? There's something wrong in knowing that, and that's where that moment is what defines the person's ethics. Understand that. So the choice is right there. Now, from that point, right? There's not an ethical issue in my mind at all, right? You start somewhere, so you get to that point where it's like, okay, there's a problem here. Then there's that choice, because I believe everyone's faced with the truth at some point, the reality of their situation, the reality of what's happening. And then from that point, you may identify as a balanced trainer, force-free trainer, play-based trainer. But then at that point, once you start to see the problems because they're inherent, right? You see, look at them, right? Then you as an individual, you make that choice. Then if you decide, you know what, I'm just going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to accept. I'm going to keep. Then you're ethically compromised. Okay, that's it. Forget it. Or you say, you know what, I'm going to make the trade off. Yeah, it's going to be kind of a hard blow here a little bit. I might lose a lot of support because I have to do it differently, but it's the right path. Okay, it's the trade off. It's a point of the trade off because there's no wiggle room here. I talk about that. That's why these trainers get so upset with what I have to say because I'm nailing it down. I'm saying here it is. This is what a process is. This is how it's defined, and it's not a learning based exercise. Play based, quasi Caesar Milan. You look at my videos. This is where again you go and look at the my videos in part of my Flipping the Script series. I lay it all out. I go through all the controversies and information based, and I break everything down to say, but I keep defaulting back to right what defines a process. So let's get into. So I want to cover off again some of the things there. I'm continuing to put out a lot of um, short form content. So you see a lot of short form content coming out. The issue about responding to certain trainers and their video content. No, I'm not interested in some of them. That's not to say I won't respond to some of the foolishness, but this with these trainers at K9Staya, it's great. It's great being able to focus on people doing it right. Okay, this is the thing, and so it's what I want to respond to some of the comments here because again they have again they're engaging some of the people coming onto my channel. Um, again, basically, and it is a lot of times, and this is why I remove some of the stuff is a waste of time. It can be helpful, don't get me wrong, for people reading it who are maybe on the edge of, making the trade-off. But a lot of times, these people coming into my comment section, yeah, when I read after I read like two or three sentences, I already know what the deal is. Okay, it's a joke. They're saying, okay, responding to these individuals is a waste. They're not. They just want to argue, right? They're not looking at their situation. Okay, they're not looking at their condition. They're not even looking at the dog training world that way. Okay, they're just totally sold out. And so it's not their agenda isn't so it's a time waster. This is why I remove comments and ban people because it's like go waste your time somewhere else. Because you have to come to the end of yourself. You got to bottom out. If you're not there and if you believe this lie and people find comfort in it and that's their moral foundation, that's on you. That's not my issue. Right? I put out the information, you have the same opportunity as everybody else to put it to the test and then look around. And if you're not willing to, and if you're engaging in, if you're defining your popularity and your success by way of the current state of the dog training world, that's a major problem. That's on you. That's not on me. I never did that. I won't do that. And so you're not going to gain anything through this information. Okay. Because you're not there, not willing to move forward. So here, I'm going through some of these comments on my recent video by way again of K9Staya talking about making the transition from balance to interaction based. Okay, so that's great. So here, just comment here thanking me for the information. Um, but I encourage you to read many of his comments because he's dialed in. He's dialed in, and he's dialed in from the the perspective of being coming from being a balance trainer to interaction based. And so when I discovered or saw their content, he was already there, and so he's taken my information and he's kind of adding to it. He admits that, some of the kind of nuances, some of the things that the extra stuff that I'm showing is helpful. Okay. But he's already there. So here he talks about thank you for attention of the channel. Um, Here he talks about um, we long ago came to the idea that the motivator should be the person, the relationship with the person, not treats and toys. See, that's the thing. You have to apply critical thinking. So you're engaging a relationship problem. See, this is the first thing here that's not even established in the dog training world correctly. Is what defines training. They don't even define it as a relationship problem. They skirt around it. They'll talk about, behavior and behavior modification, behavior issue, but they don't actually recognize that you're dealing with an actual full-blown relationship problem. And see, they don't, and so that brings you into a place of understanding what it is. It's a intervention. It's not a learning-based exercise. See, that's right there. That should get your attention. Like, see, it's incredible here that it's like it's like just common sense. There's things that should stop you and make you think about things a little bit. To say, okay, if it's not a learning-based exercise, the way it's being presented with engaging, in terms of motivating responses that way, like what, and then just keep going to the parenting example. Like if you go to the parenting example and think about I keep mentioning it over and over again in my videos for a reason. It's almost like this, it can't sink into these trainers. It's like they can't shake loose from it. They can't even absorb anything at this point. And that's why I say about being turned over. Like they're turned over to a certain way of thinking. They cannot. It's like almost like you almost have to deprogram them. They cannot come shake loose from it. They can't. I mean, I don't. I just that's why I just look at it and say this is incredible. What's going on here in the dog training community? It's like you can't actually because they've built their whole world's been built on a certain way of thinking, and then they're incentivized for that thinking, and this plays into certain things with dog owners, with their emotions, and with this appearance based picture, the context of agreeableness. I talk about all the relationship dynamics that create this really bad situation for people all the way around. And but the clues are there, okay? The ability to shake loose from it's all there. The information I put out's there. I'm very clear about it. But it's like they can't shake loose from it. They don't want to, but they want to. This is the thing that kills me. It's like, okay, and this is another common sense thing. If they had the answers, if all these trainers had the answers, why are they wanting to debate in the first place? Why are they coming in arguing with the information I'm putting out? If you're so confident in what you're saying and what you're showing, go do your thing. Why are you coming in and understand, like, whether it's Murdaugh and all, they came in here and now they want to play the victim, right? It's like why are you mocking and scoffing and attack? Why are you attacking me personally? And why are you even carrying on the way you're carrying on if you have the answers? Like if you have the answers, you should be confident what you do and just go do your thing. That's it. But see, that's right there. That's a red flag, right? That shows you they've embraced the lie and that's how they're dealing, trying to, you're right. They're unsettled. It brings all this stuff on. Okay, understand. So that alone should cause people to stop and halt and say there's something wrong here. So just look at the state of dog training. So they can't deal with because they know deep down a lot of these trainers know they're wrong. They know what I'm saying is right, but see that's their thing. And there's a spiritual principle here too. I talk about that. There really is. So this is the thing, and they're not going to accept anything, right? They're just going to carry on. So, but here I was going through some of the comments. Um, from one of these individuals. It says here, okay, go back here and K9Staya says, but without your leash technique and attention shifting techniques, it was much more difficult. So here it's K9Staya while talking about putting this together. Well, the leash. That's why I talk about the leash. The leash is a what? It's an extension of the relationship. Okay, it's a tool but it's defined relationally. Okay, so it's about being dialed in, but it reconciles those core ingredients. But it's about being dialed into the not just relationship, the mind of the dog. Okay, knowing, and so there's a type of language I talk about that's being spoken through the leash, through the interactions. See, that's the big shift. Okay, that's the big groundbreaking shift that you have to make, and it's very difficult because it requires a different way of thinking. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna make this part one. I'm gonna do probably a couple parts here at least, talking through this. I'll go down some rabbit trails here a little bit. Some of the issues going on here with these trainers. But but I would really encourage you to check out K9Staya's channel. Read his comments. I mean, they're very insightful. I mean, he gets it. That's all I'm doing here. I'm just kind of adding to some of his stuff, helping. But he was already there. So, but his journey too, it's good because it's going from balance to interaction based. So, so again, anyway, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part two.